Hey, Biv.
Hey, Dr. Mary.
How are you?
Um, I, I was gonna ask you if you're planning to transfer funds anytime soon, or we can talk about that later.
Yeah, we can talk about that later because okay. Hello. So I think that yeah, and I mean it's obviously very reasonable. So we're just kind of getting updated on the group that's going to perform for Black Power Matters. Yeah, I think it'll be good to move forward with them.
Okay.
Yeah. So hello everyone. I did receive an email letting me know that Chia is not going to join us today. So in the interest of time, I want to make sure everyone can see. Let me repost it. The link to today's agenda has a lot of important information. Hello, we'll go ahead and get started with the check-in. So whoops, I didn't mean to do that. Let me go back. So I cannot believe it. I came back on Monday thinking that we had 3 weeks left to teach, and we don't. So we next week is the last week of classes, and then of course finals week is after that. And so our last week of classes is December 9th, a week from today. So the question I have is, and I want to let you know, typically in the past, what we've done when scheduling out department meetings at the beginning of the semester is just go all the way through up until like even following the last week of classes. And so, and we alternate weeks because these meetings are bi-weekly. And so that means that the last meeting that we had scheduled on the calendar for the semester is December 16th. And we're not gonna be able to have a meeting on December 16th. And I don't think it's necessary to have 2 department meetings 2 weeks in a row. So this is going to be our last meeting of the semester. And one of the, what would be actually what I want to make sure we leave time for is to schedule a time to have our spring ethnic studies retreat, which will, it'll be virtual. And the working days for, I'll pull up the academic calendar in a minute, but I believe our first, for the spring semester, the first day of classes falls on Thursday, January 26th. And our work days are on the 24th and the 25th. So we'll be looking at those 2 days to schedule the Ethnic Studies Spring Retreat. So given that this is our last meeting of the semester, and we're going to wrap up with our teaching on Friday, what is one practice or insight that you think that you will carry over into the spring semester? And I'll go ahead and put this in the chat. Yeah, this is a thought provoker.
maybe I'll just briefly reflect. For me, I know some of the classes are already, lecture type, but still, I found it's really wonderful to have students actually talk. So sometimes we have a lot to deliver, so we want to go through the lectures, but I think just letting them reflect on what they think is a good way to just keep the whole class engaged. Not just that, it also it helps me at least to see where they are at and what they understand, and that way I can better prepare myself. So and even though some of them are really lecture types, but just letting them speak and having their thoughts moving, that I found really helpful over the past couple of weeks, and I want to do it more often.
Thank you. Yeah, definitely.
I'm gonna echo Goshu. Thank you for bringing that up, because I went blank, Mary. That question just left me. I didn't even know where to start. I was like, now I know how my students feel. But going off what Goshu stated, I think for me a lesson has been like asking them questions when they're quiet. One of my classes was very, very quiet, and I started thinking, am I doing something wrong? Or how your brain starts asking all these questions. But then I noticed that once I ask them questions, then they respond, but I have to be the one initiating it, right? It's not enough to just ask them, oh, do you have any questions? I found it effective to ask them by their names, like go by their names and ask individual questions to every single one, right? And that is what generated more discussion. So thank you, Goshu, for bringing that up, because that is a lesson for me from this semester, and I'll make sure I carry that over next semester.
And thanks for that insight. Just while you are at it, I wonder how you guys keep the balance. Sometimes I feel like am I just putting them on the spot too much, or is it, how do you keep the balance or initiating that conversation versus just also maintaining their space and not intimidating them somehow, putting them on the spot? How do you keep that balance? I wonder, if you could just reflect on that.
So for me, I think it's easier picking people from like making sure I don't repeat the names. And I think this is easier when you do it like through Zoom, but even in person, I also realize that even starting small conversations as they're walking in, just asking them, I've noticed that I've connected with more then, and just we're very simple. And I noticed that like I'm picking up patterns, right? And students then start sharing. And I realized, for example, one of my classes, they're all commuters. None of them live in Turlock. And that to me was just mind blowing. I was just like, whoa, it made me change my perspective of them, but also to become more compassionate in the sense that like, that sucks having to drive far. I mean, one of my students, for example, lives in Vacaville, and she was telling me she still has to make like 2 hours traffic. So that was just one example. But so for me, it's just making sure I ask different students. I'm not picking on the same one. And that's kind of how I do it. And I think it's easier when in Zoom, because you see their names, but in person, it's a little bit more difficult.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for sharing. And I very much resonate with this theme of student discussions. And, in Son Jarocho, we call it like sacar la voz, like how are we going to like bring out, our voices, and practicing that. And I tell my story. I tell my story about going to a small liberal arts college and being one of the only persons of color in the room, oftentimes, and that they weren't going to get a peep out of me because I was so afraid to speak. And then I tell them, I mean, this is on day one, right? And then I have it in the syllabus, that it's important for class participation that we have a balance of listening and speaking, and the reasons why it's important to speak. And at first it might feel jarring and it might feel somewhat even threatening to be asked to speak. But it's really important, because what we ask people to do in ethnic studies is to lead change, is to be an advocate for transformation in whatever ways that, you know, that they will do it. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be in the middle of the spotlight all the time, or that you have to be a strong speaker. It means that, you know, there are a variety of ways, and one way is to speak up. And so I frame it that way. And I pick on students, and it's kind of what I do at every class period. And when it's their turn to elicit responses, when they're asking questions and they elicit responses, they almost never pick on students. And so I know that that's a hard thing. It's a hard thing to do that. And then when I ask them reflective questions at the end of the semester, I ask them, you know, things like, what was hard for you at the beginning of the semester, but might feel easier for you now? And almost 50% of the students speak about that expectation of speaking, that at the beginning it was very difficult for them. But through the creating classroom community, through the group projects, through the pair shares, through the breakout rooms, through the research teams, they were able to be in touch with their authentic selves, and very much appreciate that in an academic setting, because oftentimes they're asked to like sound the way that this professor wants them to hear, to hear them. And they make that distinction. And then once, you know, one person says it, then other students start to echo the same thing. And so that is definitely one of the strongest reflections that students share at the end of the semester, is that it was harder for them to speak up at the beginning, but it was much easier now. And it wasn't just to speak up, but it's to speak up from their authentic selves. And I think that's transformation in and of itself for the students who it resonates with. And not everybody is going to like it or agree with it. But I also always say that you have the option to say, come back to me, or I'm not ready to share right now. So you do have an opt-out at all times. And I think for me, in terms of what I'm going to take with me for the spring 2023 semester, from this semester, is we did a section on self-care as political warfare, taking from Audre Lorde's lessons that they've taught us, and I think I'm gonna do some more self-care in the spring semester, because it's so necessary.
Thank you. That's really helpful.
Yeah, thank you. So I'd like to, build on what Juvenal and Koponka shared. And again, at the opening, the course introduction, I really stress the collective, the impact and the critical importance of collective learning and growth. And I structure everything right in terms of the face-to-face class sessions and the Zoom sessions around that, and explain why the fact that we are coming together as a learning community is this priceless, right, opportunity for us to learn with and from one another. And so I really stress like what K through 12 will call cooperative learning. The students from the very first class engaging in an icebreaker activity where in small groups, I mean, I do add a little incentive on there, but they do this kind of what I call not guess who, but guess what. So it's kind of like a speed dating round meets just getting acquainted and breaking the ice in the context of a learning community, and have them go to their small groups, and the group that can come up with the largest number of similarities they all 100% share in common will earn 5 extra credit points. And then And so, and I set it up with group roles, right? It's providing a little bit more of the structure, or what I call priming the pump. So from the very first class section, I'll have, designate, they'll have someone who's going to group scribe, who's going to write down all of the similarities on a piece of paper, write all of the group members' names. And then there's going to be someone, at least one person in the group, who's going to report out. And like some are like, what are a few, just like, okay, how many did you come up with? And then there's always really interesting questions, probing questions about, oh, why did, like if they say, well, we've traveled outside of the country. Oh, where are some places you visited? What are your favorite places? Some of those more probing questions. And then what'll happen is they'll have a designated person who's agreed to speak out. And what also ends up happening is that a number of group members will speak out. And I carry that forward with the content in the class, whatever is being introduced or covered more in depth. I will often have them go into more kind of structured group activities, whether it's chart paper. I do a lot of Google Slide documents on Zoom, and where they form the small groups, they answer questions that are a combination of comprehension questions, critical thinking questions, and reflection questions. And then I'll say, make sure that you have at least one group member who will report out, and inevitably, right, usually there will be more than one person in the group. So kind of, I create a container, right? I create a container for them from day one that involves this process by which it's not like so random, but like, or what would be called popcorning, kind of just asking, which is also absolutely a tried and tested method. And that tends to work really well. And then I learned, these are also visual aids. So I was asking a question about capoeira, the dance of freedom, right, in Brazil, and the debate on how it's, whether or not hip hop and b-boy, right, b-girl dancing moves come from capoeira. And the students had discussed and put down some of their ideas, and I had like stopped. I was like, oh, let me go back. And so one of them, it's like, oh yeah, I need the visual aid. So they actually really get a lot out of having that kind of structure in place. Of first going in small groups, whether it's in class and it's chart paper, or one piece of paper where they all turn it in for attendance and participation points, or whether it's a Google Slide document where they can brainstorm and critically think together. And then at least one person is going to share it, and a lot of times it's more than one person. Another strategy I've used is to have them do written reflections. And I give them the option of either writing their names or turning it in, like keeping it anonymous, depending on, right, if I'm going to use that to take participation points. And a lot of times I'll come in the next class section and I'll have several excerpts from their reflections written on chart paper, where then they can further kind of dig into their peers' observations and analyses and thoughts. And so a lot of these kinds of a little bit more structured activities, so that it can really help guide them and navigate them through the process. And so they can develop, more confidence as they, do a combination of working those critical thinking muscles and those comprehension muscles and those reflection muscles, and then speaking out about it. And I would say a carryover that also is very relevant to your question, which is really about student engagement, is that I'm going to carry over is that I continuously learn that when I include applied opportunities for them to delve into a social justice or equity topic or issue that is very relevant to them, they generate all kinds of ideas. They're like, oh no, we want to continue this discussion right in the next session. So for example, with the plans of action, there's inevitably budgets, right, with the CSU and how that's affecting our students here at Stan State, with all of the tuition and fees and the services that are being provided, and is the quality of education and the services being provided really commensurate with what they're paying. And so I was speaking to the inequity of like how the system is set up. It's a public university system and what that means in terms of taxpayer dollars, and then the rest of the funding coming from tuition and fees. And then I pointed to the historic strike that's happening in the UC system, which is the other second, there's only 10 campuses and it's still a public university system. There are 48,000 education workers striking because of extreme inequities. And so one of the students is like, oh, I want to use that in my presentation. Like, right, because it's very applied and it applies to them. And that generates a lot of engagement. It generates a lot of excitement. Now, what I will say is it puts more responsibility on me. Because then I'm like, okay, what are we going to do with this? Where is this going to go? I'm like, on my part, I'm in these different spaces. And so I'm going to be, sharing your suggestions, your observations, your critiques in these different spaces. So it can kind of lead to that. And yeah, I'm like, I want to do more of that. I want to do more of those kinds of opportunities for them to really dig into theories and concepts that go beyond abstract and theoretical, actually to applying it to their own lives.
Thanks.
Gosha, I don't know that I have anything really to add as far as the student participation. It's something I struggle with too, and I'm still working on. I'm coming from a teaching history background, where everything is very heavy lecture centered and focused, because there's a list this long of things they're supposed to know at the end of the semester, and they know this many of them, and they can't talk about them for most of the semester because they don't know them yet. So it's very different. What we're doing here is challenging me to be more creative in how I present my material, so that my presentation isn't just a presentation, but that it is an interactive thing that forces them at some point to engage with it. So I try to build in controversial argument points, right? Where I want them to argue against the point that I've put on the slide, or state something in the most hyperbolic way possible, and then try to get them to say, well, is that really truth, or is it more? So, I mean, other than, a collection of little tricks I'm trying to collect, I don't know how helpful I'll be in that regard. I think I can be helpful in the other aspect, what I'm carrying over. This is much more prosaic than what anyone's been talking about, but don't do anything that shows up in their grades that you don't intend for them to see. So I wasn't using the roll call attendance thing in Canvas. I've been keeping attendance separate. And then when I got back from Thanksgiving, in an attempt to try to organize myself, I started consolidating all of my attendance sheets I had kept into the roll call. Well, they can see that. And I had put in 2 days, and I got a flood of contacts saying, why am I failing attendance? And it's because I'd only put in 2 days yet, and they were absent one of those days, but it immediately showed up as you have an F for roll call attendance. And so I had, across 3 classes, multiple students freaking out, and it was my fault because I wasn't cognizant of what I was doing. So that's the thing I'm taking to next semester, is don't play with the system during the semester, because it will freak them out if something is, if it doesn't make sense, even for 5 minutes. I'm still diffusing this days later. So that's what I've learned.
Thank you so much, Katie, for that, because I was about to ask similar questions. I wanted to know actually if there is any way that I can work out. Should I copy I was even thinking of contacting Canvas because I wanted to bring, all my notes and Excel sheets into one because it's a grading time. But I know if I put it in on Canvas, that's going to, I don't want to create that. So is there any way that we can, still put the grades, because some of the grades are even not final. As I sometimes, as I'm grading, is it 15 or 16? Is it like 8 or 9? Because it's subjective. So is there any way that we can still use Canvas, but without students actually seeing it?
I was just gonna ask that, Goshu, if you all know how to set up, because the grade book, because this happened to me early on years ago, where you can choose which columns are actually visible to students and which are not. And you can make them visible once, like, for example, if it's just like, oh, a one-time assignment and all of the grades are entered, right, it's fine to have that column be visible to students. So I'm gonna see if I can, I'm going back to a class from last spring. And I'm trying to think, like, say, this is the presentation, hide grades. So I get, this is one way to do it. So with the eyeball crossed out, they can't see it. And then I'm gonna go back and let me see if I can, how do I unhide it? That's the only thing. That's why I'm playing around, because I had figured out how to do it this semester. Now the issue is, how do I undo that? So I was able to figure out how to do it for this semester where where I did it. I know where I did it. So if you go to assignments, because that's where I enter everything. And this is just what it's the easiest for me to do this. And of course it gets at, so I'll go down, where's that presentations? I'll go to meeting your peers. And actually it's a lot easier to just go, once you've got everything set up in your, or as you're doing it, right, as you're going through the course of the semester, in order for everything to show up in Gradebook, you have to first go to assignments and enter it there. And what I do is, okay, I haven't entered any grades. I actually need to actually do this because I have, right? So I'm going to unpublish it. And then when I go back to the grade book, it says unpublished. So that means that they can't see it. Because I thank goodness I wasn't doing that, because now I don't know, but that's why this is from the spring. So I'm not sure how to undo that. So what I did this semester was, I went to assignments. And any, like, for example, I don't know, this is their ongoing weekly assignments. And so I don't enter this. I wait until, like, Top Hat is a teaching engagement platform that I use, and it has its own internal grade book. So what I'll do is I'll just, I wait until the end of the semester, because they literally will be working on these kind of weekly assignments up until the finals. And so they just unpublish it, because that's really going to skew what they're seeing, because it's a lot. It's a lot of points, because it's the cumulative amount of all of the weekly assignments that they do. And so, yeah, if it's unpublished, let me test it out. Let me go back to home. And you can actually test out anything if you want to see what they can see by clicking on student view. So this is what shows up. This is what the students are seeing. So out of curiosity, I'm going to go to grades and see. So all of that is published. Yeah, the meet your peers, it's not visible because it's unpublished. It's interesting because it looks like the presentation is still, but it's not visible because it's unpublished. So that's lets me know that they can't see that. And then I'll just get out of student view. Is that like the way that I've been doing it is this semester is by, I get all of the assignments that I want to get set up in Top Hat. And what I do also is once I'm actually ready, like I do tend to wait until I'm ready to actually enter attendance. However you decide to set it up. And if you're doing it in that way, Katie, I would suggest, I don't know if you can, if it's set up in assignments where you can just go and, or if I haven't tried the roll call yet. So I would definitely say reach out to Canvas or OIT if that's, but like what I do is I set everything up in assignments, usually when I'm ready to actually enter the grades. But then if it's an assignment like, oh, see here, the presentation is still showing up so they could see it. Even though I had hide from students up. So just unpublish it. And then once you've entered all the points, you can publish it so they can see it. That's the easiest way that I found to do it. Go shoot. I'm not sure if Canvas, like, because I know that Top Hat has that too, where you can kind of export, but there's, I don't use every single grading category in Top Hat. So but it does show me their final, the cumulative total final that they've earned. And so I am able at the end of the semester to just like, oh, okay, it's this many points and just, enter the points. But I would say the easiest way to make sure that they can't see, like again, is to go to assignments after you, enter the assignments and then just not publishing whatever the given assignment is until you've entered the grades. But I'm not sure about like exporting, importing. I don't like to play with that too much.
No, thanks. That's been helpful. And Katie, I think Canvas, I've called them a couple of times and they're really helpful. Like they're always available and they're helpful. So just in case you want to use them, they're good.
Hey, Viv, what about you? What are you going to carry forward?
I think it's amazing that all of you guys are talking about how you want more student engagement, because I feel like a lot of professors at Stan doesn't really care about that. They just lecture and it kind of stunts students' growth. And so what I want to carry is to pretty much express my knowledge to folks who want to hear it, just because like, I used to be really scared to speak up, and especially like, even though we're all in the same department, like I still get scared to tell you guys like, oh, this is what I know or my opinion. So I think you guys are doing a big favor for students to like actually talk to them, because a lot of times faculty don't really care to talk to students. But yeah, I
Thank
think
you for
that's
sharing that, Viv. Thank you. That makes me feel good. I'll be honest with you, because you're right. Like it could go a long way. Just even when I was asking those students how they were doing, like I learned that one of them like works in Carl's Jr. and I know that, and then she started sharing. I just started asking her questions, and it just led to one thing to another, and then the other student kind of chimed in. So I like that you could connect on a more human level. So thank you, Viv, for sharing that. I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course.
I will continue to do that.
Yeah, check-ins are great for that too. So we're going to move on with just very quickly. These are carryovers from previous announcements that were sent out. So for the completion of those mandatory HR trainings, the final deadline for all overdue trainings is December 31st. I just want, and I'll have that as a reminder. Obviously, I'll take it off once we are beyond that date. And I like to copy and paste, and I like to just share directly from the source. So that's why all of the information is on the agenda and you can access any links. Really excited about the 5th Black Power Matters event that's coming up. And we are moving forward with planning and I did call the vendor and I was able to, so I didn't go there. But I did call and I was able to get in touch with someone from the Magnolia's Southern Kitchen restaurant and gave them the details and gave them my number. And so their daughter is someone from the restaurant is going to call me back. Are there any issues or needs in terms of for classes at this point. Okay, spot evaluation, all of that. Now, I do want to say that when in terms of the office supplies, Viv and I are keeping track of the budget, and so I'm going to circle back around with the dean. And I know that like Erica and Lori out of the dean's office have been updating some of our codes, Viv, and we still need to get the budget updated in terms of the increase that the dean said would happen. And so I'm going to circle back around with him to ask when our budget is we're going to see that increase. Go ahead, Viv.
Yeah, because since to be honest, we don't have enough money to do like even buying supplies or business cards. I know that some youth are waiting for
No.
business cards, and they raised the price again for paper. So that's why, like, to be honest, it's a lot cheaper to go through a third party, but they're not gonna allow us to do that. So we have to go through a stamp print, and I believe each person costs like almost $50 for business cards,
Mhm.
when it used to be $30.
Thank you, Viv. And so that's why it's like, instead of, it's on pause, right? Until we, for example, we can get basic, one of the most basic components of any job where I've gone is you get business cards. And so until we can order business cards for everyone, right? So that's why I'm gonna circle back around with Jim. I did want to give you an update very quickly, and I forwarded to you. You probably may have already received it, but we've been waiting for a long time for the resolution for Area F learning outcomes, which was even though it's labeled as like UEPC, it's actually a collaboration, and it says it on the resolution between the AB 1460 ad hoc committee that was created in 2020, 2021, and the University Education Policy Committees. So this is really great because now that President Jun has actually signed this resolution, this updated resolution, it means that the updated Area F outcomes will be entered in Curriculog, and I will be able to finalize all of the submission of like everything, from I did submit it on by the September 30th deadline, and wrote inner note saying that I can't actually attach learning outcomes to these Area F courses because the resolution hasn't been fully approved yet. So it's really good news. So you can look at that more in depth at your leisure, not that that exists. So again, gonna circle back around, where's the budget increase? And then in terms of the library list, we do have until May to enter books on that library list. I just wanted to remind you that it's $500 per faculty member. I've started entering books on it. I would encourage you, if you come across any publications that you think would be great to have as part of kind of like an ethnic studies collection in the library, to go ahead and enter those as you go. Because I've done it where I've kind of waited until like April, and that hasn't worked out very well for me. And so kind of do it as I go. Yeah, the deadline is May 17th. I still have information about conference travel. And the two really big agenda items, I'm really excited to let you know that actually I am going to be entering. There's a whole process for entering a new certificate program in Curriculog. And I've been going back and forth with Gurpreet, who helps out with all matters Curriculog since before the Monday before Thanksgiving. And so I will be entering in the professional certificate program and attaching the 4 syllabi for the 4 courses with that certificate program. And I'm doing that because basically with the way Curriculog is set up, it basically has to be a chair or a program director who's attached to it in Curriculog. So I'm really excited that we're going to be moving forward with that. And we will start the certificate program in the fall. So what I want to do right now is just make sure we're clear on the submission of the 5 artifacts for the GE evaluation of Area D courses, and answer any questions you may have about that. And then the second really important agenda item is it's going to be time for the winter new student orientation sessions that are happening January, I believe it's January 12th and 13th or January 11th and 12th. So any faculty who not volunteer, but chooses to advise on one or both sessions will be compensated. So we'll get to that after we go over the artifacts submission process. So I know there was a lot of information shared at the last meeting, links in the chat. What I've done is I've actually included the links to the artifacts, detailed instructions, right, explanation of what the GE, General Education Area D assessment is. And I'm going to give you the kind of synopsis of what this means. So as Shri and Youngha shared in the last Ethnic Studies Department meeting, they highly prefer having the 5 artifacts from just one class, 5 artifacts from one assignment, because they want to compare apples to apples and not apples to oranges. And anything like pretty much, it could be a quiz, it could be a test, it could be an essay, it could be a presentation, as long as it's 5 student examples of the same assignment. And I will get down to the list of the classes that have been that have to submit these artifacts. And I suggest, I'm even thinking about how am I going to do this? But the artifacts can be emailed directly to Dr. An or Dr. Shri, and the emails are right here. Their email addresses are right here. Now, what I'm thinking is, because I'm most likely going to do the, let's get down to the list of classes so this list of all of the courses is like all of the courses at Stan State that are participating in this evaluation. So what I did is I just created this table of the ethnic studies faculty that are on this list of all the courses. So the name of those of us who are participating in this, the title of the course, and the section. And so, for example, there's 3 sections. 3 of us are being requested, have been asked to submit artifacts for 3 different sections of the Intro to Ethnic Studies course. And we get to choose, right, as long as it's 5 examples of the same assignment. And so like what I'm most likely going to do is do the, I'm still going back and forth between the social justice activist presentations with the scripts or the plans of action. Now, what I may do is reach out to, I will probably send an email to Shri and ask, does he have a preferred format? Because what I'm thinking is, now I could submit this because I have the electronic files. I could submit these as 5 different, attachments, or I could kind of collate them into one PDF document. But I'm not, and then submit just like one PDF document with the 5 artifacts of the one assignment. The challenge with that is I don't know how the evaluators are going to logistically actually evaluate the artifacts, and if it would be more helpful to them to have them be individual files or in one file. So I will send Shri an email about that. And the preferred deadline is by next Friday. The other reason I want to do the social justice activist presentations is because I already have all of them. I will have all of the plans of action by December 8th, and that's cutting it really close. They also did say that there is, as long as they receive the artifacts by, at the latest, the last day of the semester, which is when we enter grades, when grades are due, and that's December 21st. Now, for me, I want to get it over with. So, especially because my priority after submitting these artifacts is to submit final grades for the semester. So, does anyone have any questions about the artifacts, who you contact? And I don't believe that we have to do any additional, like, they're the ones who are going to be evaluating the alignments between our course learning outcomes for the GE courses, right, which all get approved through Curriculog. And after it's a stringent, it is a pretty rigorous process. And then making sure that the assignments are aligning, right? They're actually providing students the opportunity to demonstrate their learning of the specific course learning outcomes. So it's like, my understanding is we just email the artifacts. And I'll double confirm that with Sri when I ask him what would be the preferred kind of way to format those.
I'm
So-
still a little confused. I'm not gonna lie.
Okay.
I'm like, I don't know what, like, all right, so we gotta submit artifacts. Did we decide, for example, like for the intro one, like I see my name listed right there, right? Like the plan of action, is that what we decided we're gonna submit? And how many of them do they need?
5.
Okay, 5. Okay, cool. So it's simple. So we just
Mhm.
submit those to you by what day, the 8th or the 9th? I think I wrote down the 9th, but
Mhm.
right now you mentioned the 8th.
I was saying that in reference to myself because part of the reason I'm hesitant to submit the plans of action is because my students are not going to finish presenting those until the 8th. And
Mhm.
that's cutting it close, you know what I mean?
Okay.
So I was just speaking in terms of like thinking out loud in terms of what the logistics will look like. So that's why I'm leaning towards submitting the social justice activist presentations because I have all of them already.
So are we gonna submit these all together or independently?
Independently. So
Okay.
you can submit them and I mean, you could email both of them or you
Okay.
could just send your artifacts to Dr. or Youngha or Sri, right, via email.
Okay, yeah, what I'll probably end up doing is emailing one and then CCing the other, so they could be on the same page.
That's a great idea. I like that.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and so just explain, I guess, short, I don't wanna be all right,
Mm.
cool. All right, so that's it, simple task. I thought it was more complex.
I
Okay,
did too. I've been asking a lot of questions
Yeah.
over the course of the semester, and I'm realizing, I really would be curious as to know what preferred format they would like, because even just, I mean, do they want,
I'm just thinking a PDF will do. I mean, it's fine, all in PDF form, and then explaining that in the email, and then keep it simple, because then, yeah, and then if they have questions, they can let us know, but I'm thinking before their deadline, right, which is what's the deadline they gave us?
I mean, they said the 9th, and they said that they would obviously at the very, very, very latest,
Mhm.
the last day, and that's what it says in all of the emails, the last day of the fall semester, which is December 21st, because it's when grades are due.
Okay, well, all right, perfect.
But they
Sounds
do
good.
have the 9th, like on this form.
Yeah, so yeah, that's probably
Yeah.
not gonna work, because you're right, I think my students are submitting theirs on the 8th. And so by grading them, and I mean, but if I could submit them before the 16th, that works. I mean,
Yeah, and you can, and I think when you just say it's like, this does get a little tricky, it does get tricky for those of us,
right.
like, for example, they, let me see.
I just want to make sure we're doing it by the deadline though, but I know, I remember you, like you mentioned, like they did say, like, I wrote down, I don't know why I wrote down the 16th, but maybe I was wrong, right? But even then, I mean, the sooner the better, it's my understanding.
Okay.
Okay, so yeah, you're right, it's just the 9th right there.
So nice.
Yeah, and so here it says the assessment team collects assessment artifacts from faculty to effectively analyze the data and generate results that are important for the university's continuous improvement processes. The data being provided by faculty is important, and the results will only be reported in aggregate, so in large, right, kind of large groups, descriptive statistics to protect the anonymity of all faculty and students. So I'm assuming they did all this. It's their job. I mean, I'm just sending the artifacts.
Yeah, just for me, for example, I'm just going to submit essays,
Exactly.
5 essays, and then I should-
This person submitted an exam, the exam 1. So they just basically, that's what they did. They submitted the whole. So I guess they submitted 5 students' exams with all of the questions, with all of the responses, which that, right? And so that's a lot. That's a lot. But yeah, yeah, like essay, exam, let me see.
So the plan of, I'm just curious, so the plan of action, was that just an example, or is that something we kind of decided, or,
You get to choose what assignment you submit.
okay.
Yeah,
okay.
you get to choose. So basically,
Like, given that you wrote down like my name right there, an intro to ethnic studies, the plan of action is one of the assignments they have to complete, right?
Mhm.
And so that's why I'm kind of like just making sure I do what it says right here.
Right. So this here, procedures for data collection. So the 5 student work artifact items will be collected. The student work artifact items can include assessments. I mean, it's a kind of assessment, right? Assessments are not just tests.
Right.
It could be assignments,
Mhm.
which is, right, it's the plan of action is an assignment. I mean, they're technically, like, for example, a presentation is an assignment, but it's also a formative assessment.
Mm.
Summative assessments tend to be cumulative. They tend to be, right, final exams or final research papers. Formative assessments are more so ongoing. They're not set up to look at how the students have learned, like kind of an overview of the end of the semester, an assessment set up for students to be able to demonstrate, I've learned all of this over the course of the whole semester, which since those are summative assessments versus formative, which is we're honing in on like for the social justice activist presentations, it's an assessment, it's a formative assessment, and it's an assignment. So I don't, right, but that's, so assessments, assignments, quizzes, exams, projects, papers, and any other methods that you are using to assess. So it could actually be artwork, right? If you have an assignment that integrate, like think about the music department, then it's like video recordings of music performances on the part of students. It could be, think about the art department, right? Then it's going to actually be, right, art. So yeah, you get, please identify, okay, please. So this is more involved than I thought, and I do have very, very basic rubrics. So I'm
Whoa.
glad you're asking this. Please
Yeah.
identify an assignment that addresses the anchor outcome of the GE sub area and save and send the 5 work artifacts. Please make sure you provide a rubric that was used to evaluate the student's work and indicate the grading system. So there is more to this that was used by you to evaluate learning outcomes. So I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do with this. So we have, and I'm happy to share. So for example, obviously I have to do intro to ethnic studies. And I'll go back to the document, but I want to work backwards for a minute. So I have the social justice activist presentation instructions. I'm going to send this. And now I usually have, I have like very, 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 very basic rubrics. So what I'm going to do is just kind of take this maybe and just like copy and paste. And, or this is, I say, look, I don't know. We don't have to, I don't think we have to technically submit a rubric as long, but this has everything. This is the instructions. All a rubric is to me, because they can get real complicated and real cumbersome and get real confusing, is basically what is the assignment, what is the purpose, what is the criteria that they have to meet, and what is the point breakdown. And then again, the script. Right, and I've got to just update this because I did a different point value that I went over with them. But again, so it consists of 3 components. And this is the criteria that they will need to fulfill in order to earn the maximum points. And then here, which I love, this is what I love about these instructions, because it gives, and the plans of action does do this too, it literally gives the text-based instructions, and then it literally gives a slide by slide by slide, very specific instructions on what they are to include on each slide. What I'm going to send this, because I'm going to send the plans of action.
That's another concern of mine. I mean, the fact that I think we all use different rubrics, which, I mean.
I'm going to put, to me, and I'll explain. I have broken down the criteria and the points assigned and the purpose of the assignment, and actually the full breakdown of what each slide is to look like. That's the purpose of a rubric. So I'm going to push back against that. I don't really like rubrics, actually. I'm like, it's just this is what I have found to be the most effective way of articulating instructions to students. Not having, here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and this is where you're going to go. Nope. Right here. Text-based instructions, literally a breakdown of each individual slide in terms of the formatting. And what I'm also going to include, and I don't think there will be a problem with this, I include examples of student work or exemplars. So I'm also going to include this, and I'm going to explain that students have access to looking at A-level work. It's called exemplar. So not only do they get the text-based instructions, they get a specific slide by slide by slide breakdown of how to format the slides. They also get to see a student exemplar. Exemplars are what they sound like. They're exemplars, they're exemplary work by students. So I'm actually going to also attach this when I send the artifacts. And you are now, there's some assignments, for example, where I will attach what I call a really basic rubric. So for example, but I it's a little different. I'll play with that a little bit, but so especially when I was
curious, so like the digital portfolio, you know how in ethnic studies we ask them for a portfolio, would that be a good one to send?
I mean, I think about,
because the whole GE requirement is what kind of has me a little concerned.
I wouldn't be concerned about it, because the problem is I know what's actually going on the campus. People are not teaching. There's a lot of people, they're definitely not teaching to what I would consider basic standards. They're not really teaching in alignment. So unfortunately, the bar, and I'm not saying be lax, because the bar is set very low.
Okay.
Practice.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm saying I wouldn't go over, right? I wouldn't be like, I'm choosing what is going to be the easiest artifacts for me to submit. Now I could go in and I could be pulling stuff out of Top Hat, and I'm not doing all that. Because I literally have a full exhaustive breakdown of the students' work, and that like literally every question they answer and submit, every discussion response, I have all of it. I'm not going into Top Hat and extracting and but like I'm not doing that. I'm gonna do, so for
I
example,
get it. So I guess I'm just gonna follow what it says and not worry too much.
yeah, I wouldn't worry about it. And I would
Alright,
just,
cool.
yeah, I will show you what I did. This is the this is more of the portfolio. This is from 4200. And it used to also include an essay. So that's so this is where again I have what is the assignment, what's the purpose? Instructions, directions and instructions for verbal and visual presentation, right? It's a text-based, it's visual, and it's also oral, right? Speaking. And then I also give them an opportunity for extra credit because they've really been very creative with this assignment when I've taught this course. And then guess what? I did my little grading rubric right here. I just reorganized, and I did it at the end because in long text-based form, I've already provided the instructions. And I'm like, I'm not,
Yes, all right, thank you.
Right,
No, I
so-
appreciate it because yeah, even the ACAU training is kicking back. All right, cool.
it's kicking, but, and what
Yeah.
I can, if you all would like, no, this is really important because,
Yeah, because the rubric can be like instructions. I mean, you're right. I'm
oh, it
thinking, like,
could,
you know,
no,
like,
it,
I mean,
rubrics can be,
yeah,
rubrics became a trend in
Right.
K through 12 in the early 2000s. And it's like anything else. Don't let the tool work you, you work the tool. And I mean, I've used it. I had to use it. It's like I was using it intensively in 2000, from 2010 to 2012. And I was like, I have my opinions about rubrics. So I would just say, for my thing, keep it simple. And if it's cumbersome and it's complicated, for me as the educator to just put this thing together, it's going to take me forever to explain it to students, and they're still going to be confused. So I keep it simple. And the simplest thing is like having these really clear instructions, text, right, broken down like this, which I got from, I mean, this was built into the class. These were the materials that I received. Now, obviously, Racial and Ethnic Experiences has been revamped, so I'm going to have to revisit it. So I'll be probably contacting Katie and GoShu to see what you all have been doing with the updated version. And then what I did is, right, just, and also, this is best practices, and maybe I can give them a cue. Exemplars. You've got the text-based instructions, and then you've got that's telling them and then showing them.
yeah. I think that's
Students
what
need to
separate, yeah.
see
Hey,
what
I just showed that video today.
the students need to see what it looks like. Right? So then I have a lot of exemplars. Right, so, and that's, now I'm not doing this one this semester. I'm not being, this is not the class that I taught, that I'm teaching, and so, but like I have several examples for this one. Show and tell. And every semester it keeps getting better and better and better. That one was really, that was a lot of fun when we unpacked that. I said, ooh.
That's
They
funny.
throw the house shoe. Ooh, Big Mama throws the house shoe too, the chonkla. But yeah, it's like, right? So just like show and tell. And I mean, they're not asking for this. I'm going to do it because I know how important showing students, not just telling them, even with all of those broken down, very specific, very clear, very concrete instructions, you got to show them what it looks like. You got to show them. So that's what I'm gonna include is my 5 artifacts, the instructions, right, and then the sample of student work. What did I just do with that? I don't know. And apparently, so thank you again for asking these questions. We also, and again, you can access all of this information at the link beside, right here beside artifacts. We just, please identify an assignment that addresses the anchor outcome of the GE sub area. So I would just say GE anchor outcomes. And these are in our course syllabi. So then what I would suggest is first, now I'm not going to include my syllabus.
Is that language part of the document you send us, or are they attached right there?
It's if you go to the link to the agenda,
Okay.
and
looking
for
at it.
today's meeting,
Mm-hmm.
and you go down to the university section,
Mm-hmm.
and then you go right up underneath the 2 names and contact emails, you can
Right.
access, yeah.
Okay, perfect. Okay, cool.
And then what I also suggest, what I'm gonna do, because I'm doing for intro to ethnic studies, I'm just gonna go, because this is a standard part of all of the syllabi, because this is what we had to include on the syllabi to get them through Curriculog. So I'm just gonna open up, it's all the same, right, for all the intro to ethnic studies courses. I'm gonna go down here. G and D2B.
Okay, yes, all right. Now that you're going through it, it's less confusing now. Okay, I get it.
Yeah, but it's like,
Reading it and seeing it are 2 different things.
oh yeah, it's reading it. So my thing is, some of the syllabi, we are pretty exhaustive, but the course meets the areas of G and D2B. At the end of this course, students will be able to address at least 2 of the essential learning outcomes. So I'm just going to say, this course meets the area of G and D2B, the social justice activists presentations demonstrate student learning of two. And then let me just write and just type it out. I know this is a lot. It's,
I think even the examples you showed us, Mary, fulfill all of those points that you just showed us. So I mean, it's just we got plenty. I'm not worried. It's just, again, like seeing that and then like you showing us the work. I think we already have it. It's just a matter of picking the best ones and making sure we grade first before we just submit anything, right?
Yeah, that's the thing for I mean, it's like I have a different way of grading, so I'm not gonna, but I will explain, like, it is tricky because the presentations and then the scripts. Let me see. I think I have the link saved to, I just want to double check one thing. I knew this was going to take a while. GE list of all courses. So this is the GE list of all courses.
Can you share that, please?
Yeah, I'm going to share that right now.
Thank you.
That's exactly why I pulled it up. So so this is list of all GE courses. So I'm going to add this on the agenda too. So let me go down. I think we're, D2, social, economic, and political institutions, human behavior, area 2D is, I guess, human institutions, societies, and cultures. And of course, I mean, we're being asked to, they're going to assess this in relation to area D and not area F. Those learning outcomes have literally just been approved. They're not even formalized. They're not even in curriculum yet. So I'm going to go back here. D2. And I'm just going to cross-reference. Yeah, D2. So what I suggest is it's not really D1, it's more so D2
But
for ethnic studies.
isn't this one already outlined in the syllabus?
Yes, I just am double checking to make sure that it's all right, accurate.
Okay.
And it's that it actually is all aligned, like with the language that they're using for this assessment with what we have on our syllabus, on our syllabi. And I'm just going down to and it's area D. So here's area D. And here's ethnic studies. This is what? This is upper division, UDC, it's upper division C. Nope, let me go down. This is lower division D. D, social, economic, and political institutions and human behavior. So we are we're 2D. So human institutions, societies, and cultures. And then they just basically went in here. And these are pretty much the courses. A lot of these courses are being evaluated. Not all of them, but a lot of them. A lot of them. So that's why we got chosen. And so
real quick, which one's the areas of G? Because I see the D2B, but which ones are the G?
the GE is just overall general education.
Okay.
And so what they're doing is they're evaluating for us the classes that fulfill the lower division D. So this is D. And so for D2, it's D1 and it's D2. So what they mean by that is that D2 is human institutions, societies, and cultures. So these are the ethnic studies classes that we are teaching right now that are lower division D2, right? It's area D,
Yeah,
but it's number 2.
right.
D1 is United States history. So there's literally only one department.
Wow.
Yeah, so they've they're literally getting a lot of students in these
Yeah.
classes just because of this.
Wow.
So the
Okay.
students are captive audience. They're getting corralled. And my thing, that's fine. Then you better teach your butt off, okay? Because you're corralling these students.
How
I
many
mean, they're
students
just,
do
they
get
got
on
their
board?
whole, they
Yeah,
have a
how-
whole individual area for in general education for area D. Just one department.
Yeah, because I'm seeing it now and I'm like, damn.
Yeah, so everybody else, guess what? We're all D2. Well, at least it keeps it simple for us. Look at this. Everybody else, because 2 is human institutions, societies, and cultures. Now, I think there needs to be ethnic studies all up in this, but that's just me. United States history. Anyway,
Wow.
look at all that. Everybody else, put them in 2. Let's just put them in 2. So that's it. This is literally lower division D consists of 2 sub areas, United States history and everybody else. That fits
Dang.
into human institutions, societies, and cultures.
Wow. When I looked at it from this perspective, this changes it. Wow.
Mhm. Yeah,
How many professors do they have? I mean, that's that history department.
I don't know, but I don't know what they call themselves. They're all racial, they're all white or white adjacent. Racialized as white.
It's
So
just, it just left me wondering, are humanist institutions and societies and cultures, are they not part of the US history, or are the US not part of this? They have to
I
come
think what
into
they've
that?
done, what you're seeing is territoriality, academic, you're seeing a pissing contest, in academia. I don't know why this was done. I'm sure there's a story here. This makes no sense to me. Why do you have one entire sub area of a general education requirement that's just that's framed in these, that's literally history, then it's the history department. And that's it. It's very constricted and it's very reductionist. And I disagree with it. And I am an historian. My major was in non-Western history that also included United States history. I don't know. I think there's a story here. I don't know.
Yeah. There's
But at
economics, anthropology, communication, math, everything is lumped
Everything
together.
else. So they were like, yeah, we got to throw I guess we got to throw everyone else about, whatever,
I mean,
world-
and they're still listed at the bottom too.
like, why are we in the same category as the
Yeah,
world of fashion?
and they're still in our section too. That's funny.
But at least we know,
Yeah, I mean, I don't think someone else is asking these questions.
no, they're not. So like D2. So I guess the 2.3, 2.4, because we're D2, I'm gonna treat it, I mean, like, where is it? Here. So we are D2B because we fall under human, societies, culture, ... And there are 4 anchor or essential learning outcomes. 2.1, what, 2.1, 2.2, 2.3, like I'm gonna, I would say that for intro to ethnic studies, for me, I'm gonna be choosing 2.2 and 2.4. Right, with the plans of action. I mean, the social justice activists. Now, the plans of action, I think, are a little different, but I'll choose 2.2 and 2.4 as the anchor outcomes that I will just say, like. So let me go back. Choose at least one if multiple appear. We'll select the 2 to 4 essential outcomes. So GE suggested outcomes. This is. The thing is, I'm not sure about the GE suggested outcomes. I'm gonna keep it simple. And I'm just gonna focus on what's in the actual syllabus for this that's already been approved through Curriculog and by UEPC. And so if they're like, oh, it's like, all right, I'll keep it real simple. So I'm gonna go back down to this example where this person who submitted this just basically they were required to demonstrate the ability to think critically and creatively. GE anchor outcome 1.3, that's it. To think critically and creatively. So I think that we have other syllabi, like this one was approved, but these are really the anchor outcomes. This is not the general.
I have a question. Go back up because I'm a little confused. Where it says learning objectives
Up here.
Keep going right there. Where it says area G and D2. What's area G?
What area? I'm not sure what area G is. I'm
Right,
not.
then I see the D2B with the link you sent us, but what is area G?
I'm not sure what area G is. I'll look at it. For this particular evaluation, they're not assessing area G. They're
Okay.
assessing area D. That's why I'm not really But, and it's also good to know, right? It's also good to know, but
Yeah,
like
because I
specifically,
think everybody, even, I mean, even me, like, I read them, right, but we just kind of glance through them, right? And I feel like the
Yes.
students even do that a little bit more, right? But it's good to know where
it
to
is
get.
good to know, and it's good to know that when I like, for example, for the course introduction, this is a really good exercise. So area G, we, now that we,
Yeah, see, I couldn't find it, so I'm just.
I
like,
don't know what that, I
so
don't know
is
what
that
that
missing like
is.
a GE, I'm thinking, or is it like a G?
Do
So
I have a typo on my syllabus?
that's what I was thinking as well. So is
Yeah,
that
I
like
may have
a,
yeah, there is no area G.
so is that areas of GE within and D2B, or that's kind of what I was thinking.
Well,
So I'm not
GE
sure.
is all of these, so all of these are general education.
So then this is a typo then.
This
Areas
is
of
a
G-
type of, these are all of the areas
Right,
within
so in
general
that case,
education.
so
It's
then we
probably
have
a
a typo
typo.
in the syllabus then.
So I need to change that.
All right, because I have it myself. That's why I wanted to make sure that.
And I was like, I wasn't even looking at it that closely, but yeah, there is no area G.
Okay, so then that means we have a typo on our syllabus. Let
Yep.
me address that. All
We
right.
need to address This is great. So actually, I'm going to start integrating this into the course introduction. So I know that I'm concerned because some of our syllabi do have the general education. Oh, look, goals and outcomes.
Nice.
This is
Is that
it.
the same link?
This is, let me
Can you
re-enter it in
also
the
post
chat.
it?
It's the same link. So
Okay,
what so these are all like, there's the goals and outcomes of the GE education program, and there's the right, the specific learning outcomes for our individual classes are the sub area. So I'm gonna do what they showed
I
on the
mean, but
sample.
see, they're already kind of giving us a rubric. I mean, I'm just being real.
Yeah, they actually have. It's like
Right.
literally it's a rubric
It's
because
yeah, because I
they're
mean,
look at this.
demonstrate effective oral communication. I mean, right? We could just change it to satisfactory, right? Or
Mhm.
poor, right? I mean, and there goes your A, B, C. I mean, yeah.
I just think what's interesting is, to me, this is confusing to me because it's not matching
Right.
what's up here. Because it's saying D2, this part is confusing to me. But you know what? I'm going to do what they have on here.
Right.
I'm going to do the general education like this person did. These are all general education, anchor outcome, and then he's attaching assessed outcomes. What outcomes are being assessed? So I guess this part is a little confusing to me. So let's go back to and we have some of these are on the, so these are all of the goals and outcomes. Okay, these are the goals. Okay, so I guess, all right.
Well,
That's
maybe they're together, goals and outcomes, right? I mean,
They're putting them together.
Yeah,
I would
yeah.
not, I'm not sure why they're doing that. Like, there's some things I would change.
right.
I would, but again, that's okay.
Right.
That's okay. That's okay. Yeah, so just go, I would say hone in on these. GE courses will address, this is what they're referring to, 2 to 4 of the most essential learning outcomes. And I might zhuzh it up a little bit with, the actual course or the ethnic studies ones, but yeah. So I'm going to definitely add this link onto wait, let me make sure I didn't. Okay. Link to all GE courses. Let's say areas, courses, and GE learning goals and outcomes so that you all have that. Whoops, let me go up here. Okay. And I'll just make sure that you all have, again, I'll enter the chat because here is link to today's agenda with all information to submit artifacts. Does anyone, I'm glad that we did this today. Oh, it's more, I just
Yeah,
want to
thank you,
get the
Mayor. Yeah,
artifact. And
because
thank
I
you for
was-
asking the questions.
Well, I mean, I'm confused myself. I'm less confused now.
Yeah, I think we got a game plan. Does anyone else have any other questions? I know this is a lot. And if you do, you can send me an email for sure.
I have a question. What about the adjuncts? Are they gonna be doing the same thing?
There are two that are required to do this, so I'm definitely
Yeah.
gonna reach out to them. That's why it's like, I'm
Yeah.
definitely
I
gonna.
would,
send
I
them
would,
a
yeah, I was
message.
gonna- yeah, because this is, if it's confusing to us, wow.
Yeah, there's two of them. Yeah. And these are all lower division area D. Now we know what that is, human societies, cultures, ... We know that it's all in 2D because
I learned something new today, that's for sure.
1D is just history. I guess they in the VIP room. I guess they, back in there in the green room. I don't know. So go shoot. Do you have any questions?
No, I think this just shows that how much we need to engage in, in this kind of processes so that
Mhm.
our voice is also reflected. Yeah.
I'm gonna ask, why is it set up this way? I
Yeah.
am curious. I'm like, this is very odd to me. It's very odd.
Yeah. Well, they may have some kind of justification, but I think we need to go beyond that and
Mhm.
what is really happening. But I think I'm just going to ask them directly if I have any issues. I'll keep it simple and because I remember they keep sending emails as well,
They
reminder
do.
emails, and looking at it doesn't really seem that too complicated from
No,
the
it's
email.
actually not. Yeah.
So we just follow whatever they say, and then if they want to come with more information,
Mhm.
obviously we'll probably give them more information. But I think let's just keep it simple and submit those 5 artifacts and let them worry with the matching with the connection. which we have.
Exactly.
So that's what I think.
I agree. And I also, in the last 3 minutes, the email there was an email that was sent to me. So then I don't know if I've already forwarded it to you, but there is an opportunity to advise virtually for our college, the College of Business, College of Arts, Humanities, and Social Sciences, for transfer students on January 12th. And then for first year students that are entering in the spring, all colleges on January 13th. I'm not sure. The issue that I have with this is, well, I'll be here. I'll be back. So I just need to clarify whether or not the transfer sessions are in person or not. Either way, I am required. That's fine. I would do it anyway. If any of you would like to advise at one or both sessions, please let me know. Send me the email. And you will be compensated. It looks like you are not compensated for winter work. So if you do advise in your degree programs, you will be compensated through the special consultants agreement forms. And it will be $267.50 for advising this, because it's not a whole full day, right? It's like, it may be
It says 2-3
4,
hours.
maybe 4, maybe 4 hours at the most. Like, I've done it before. Okay, no, so faculty advisors will be okay, so let me correct. I just know what I did. Will be compensated for 1/2 day of work to engage in an hour-long advising session with incoming majors. That's going to be whatever, however many, right, majors for ethnic studies that are coming in. That will be followed immediately by supporting students for the next 2 to 3 hours or so as they register for classes, answering scheduling questions, guiding them to staff from enrollment services who will be standing by to help. Advisor staffing for scheduled NSO dates should be consistent with the staffing typically used for in-person NSO sessions in the past. Okay. Faculty advisors will have support from orientation leaders, enrollment services staff, and NSO administrators and faculty fellows to help direct traffic and answer questions. So again, I'm familiar with this because I've done it before. It is helpful that they do have all of this support staff. And yeah, just send me an email if you would like to advise. Now, I think the question that I have is, this one does say virtual, these don't. So I'm kind of assuming they're going to be face-to-face. I'll be here. But yeah. So yeah, let me know. Send me an email if you
Cool.
would
So
like to.
will there be orientation, I guess? Yeah. So that's what's saying. As to, because I see that there's majoring, minoring, concentrating. So you know, a little more.
Yeah, that's tricky. I mean, besides like what we've covered in our meetings,
Mhm.
what I'll do is I'll send out, make sure our Viv, can you send out all of the updated advising sheets?
Of course.
If you are interested in advising, I'll see who's interested and I can do a quick refresher that's very, very specific, because this is really specifically to advise majors. And because if they're incoming in the spring of 2023, they're going to need to know about Area F. And they're also going to need, we will use the most updated ethnic studies advising sheets, because like everything after the spring of 2020 is all like the updated, revamped ethnic studies curriculum for the minor and major. So that makes it easy, because the advising is all going to be based on the same catalog year, and it's all going to be based on the updates after that were made, right? The split in ethnic studies is the updates. It's spring of 2020, and then it's 2016 to 2020, and then fall of 2020 to the present. It's all the same, right? The requirements for the major. So I can, if you're interested in advising, I can do a refresher, like I can do a session on that, so to prepare you, because it's a good way to kind of dip your toe into advising, especially in your first year, so that just to kind of get your feet wet, so that when you start doing it, like in your next year for you and KD, you at least have a little bit of practice, and this way you get compensated for it. It's a part of our regular job, you know what I mean, during the regular semesters, the regular academic year, but you do get compensated for it. So if you send me an email and you would like to advise and you would like a refresher session, I will definitely, I could probably set that up like virtually on, say, like January 10th. And just plan on doing that. Okay, any other questions? All right, it was a lot. Thank you. I'm really glad we did that, because that helped to clarify a lot in terms of the next big thing. And in addition to grading, it's just getting those, getting those 5 artifacts in, giving a brief explanation of the GE essential learning outcomes, at least 2 of those, and then providing like the instructions to show, well, this is the rubric, this is how I'm grading them. So yeah, so if I don't see you all again, have good luck with the very end of the semester, and have a wonderful holiday. And we are out of time, so what Viv and I will do is reach out to you to see what date and time works best for us to schedule the ethnic studies spring retreat on one of those working days.
So what are the working days again, Mary?
The working days are, and let me, the
24, let me see.
It's the 23rd and 24th, correct?
it is, and what I'm gonna do, this is my go-to. I'm always going to this. You can definitely,
24, it starts.
24.
the
Okay.
24th, which I think is Tuesday.
Okay.
Yes, it's a Tuesday.
So, yeah, you just go to the 22-23 calendar and it's got all of these different annotations.
Mhm, mhm.
And so when we go down here to January, as you can, these are academic work days. The yellow square with the kind of black triangle. And then it means that we are working, we're just not teaching. And then the 26th, that's the first day of class.
Perfect.
So I
Okay.
always go to the academic, thank you, Viv, the academic calendar. Yeah, so
Thank
you all can be thinking about which one of those days and what times will work best for you in terms of, and it'll probably, we'll send out an email and it'll probably be, what's like, what you think, 3 to 4 hours, Viv, I think we usually do for
Yeah, we
retreats.
should do like 4 hours.
4 hours, yeah. Mhm. Yeah, so exciting. We made it.
Yay.
Almost there, almost there. So if I don't see you all, have a great break and restore, rest, reconnect. And I'll see you in 2023, if not within the next couple of weeks.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're
everybody.
welcome.
Bye.
Bye.